Hi, I'm here with Dr. Bob Fairclough with Kleffmann Group. Kleffmann Group is a data analysis and pre-registry data generation company. Bob just gave a great presentation about global trends in supply and demand, mostly demand drivers and use trends around the world on crop protection, and some of the more interesting topics of late. The topic du jour are mergers and acquisitions. In the past, you've shown how the top 6 companies consolidated are a certain percentage of the industry. Can you tell me how that might change with the consolidation we're seeing now with Dow-DuPont, possibly Syngenta-ChemChina, and the others that might be in the hopper?
Yes, I mean, first of all, we are due consolidation in this industry. I mean, it's 15 years since we've had anything major, and to be fair, I've anticipated consolidation for the last 5 years, so it's completely due and it will happen. Whether or not any of those 3 particular ones will go through is still up for grabs. I'm not convinced about, I'll get to figures in a second, still not convinced about ChemChina and Syngenta. Dow-DuPont are running into difficulties in Europe a little bit, and then the Monsanto one and Bayer one is turning what one might call hostile. I mean, essentially it is now becoming a hostile takeover. So not convinced that all or any of those 3 will go through, but consolidation will happen at some point in time. At the moment, we have the top 6 companies, which account for 63% of the global market total, which it's about just over $60 billion if you take into account crop and non-crop. There's the 63% has to be taken with a little bit of pinch of error because, of course, Syngenta sell to Dow and DuPont sell, and all the rest they sell to each other, but as a benchmark, 63%. If those 3 mergers go through that you've just mentioned, then the top 3 companies, by some shape or form of statistics, account for 63%. Or 63 at the moment, 64% if it takes through for 3 companies. I'm much happier with an industry where there's 6 large companies involved and creating competition, creating opportunities for farmers, creating choice, as opposed to the worst situation of just 2. And in the talk I used the airplane where you've only got Boeing and Airbus, and frankly you can't really tell the difference between the 2, and there's not a lot of choice for the aviation industry. Now, maybe in the aviation industry it has to be that way, but I think in our industry it's good to have 5, 6 different companies at the top. So I'm not so comfortable with it, and I'm not at all comfortable with the fact that the top 3 companies will be so far ahead by a factor of 2, really, 12 billion as opposed to less than 6 billion, more than a factor of 2 to the next competition. So, and I'm sure that we're going to see, as a consequence, not only if these 3 go ahead, a lot more activity in the 2nd tier and 3rd tier companies to bridge that gap, so you don't have the same situation as we have with airlines of 2 at the top and then everybody else.
So assuming that consolidation at the top will happen, I know we don't want to get into specific companies that might find good mergers and acquisitions, but what types of companies at that mid-tier and smaller tier levels would make sense to merge? Are they looking at portfolio? Are they looking at market share? Are they looking at market entry and access? What kinds of things would make a good pairing?
Yeah, I think it's bad. It would be bad for me to say that. I think, if you are going to merge with New Farm or something, but we're certainly in the question in terms of types of companies. I mean, one of the things as well about the Dow-DuPont merger, of course, is not driven by the pesticides business. It's driven by the corporate entity of those 2 companies. So, in my view, that's not necessarily a good match. I would prefer to see a European and a US-based company joining. The days have gone, really, where in the past you would look at the product portfolio of, let's say, ICI and Ciba-Geiger, whoever it was at the time, and you could make very good product portfolio matches it up. They're weak in herbicides, they're strong in fungicides, they'd work well. But to be honest, you can't do that anymore because of the patent situation, because larger proportion of the molecules are available. Most companies have potential access to most molecules in most markets, particularly for the big players. If we're looking at the types of companies, you've got a European. If we go say to the Japanese, and I think there's making sense was your point. Which ones make sense? Now, that's different to what will happen, but what will make sense would be consolidation of the Japanese industry. Your Kumiai's, your Nippon Solens, and Neon Yaku's, a whole host of them, which are, fantastic expertise in R&D, manufacturer, proprietary chemistry, far way ahead really of anybody else. And, in terms of making sense to have 2 or 3 incredibly large Japanese-based companies churning out a lot more active ingredients for the market to develop, I think would make perfect sense. Obviously, making sense. The question will make sense. The Chinese. There's just a ridiculously large number. We've been saying this for a number of years. We are seeing it. See 2 or 3 a year. But when you've got something like 3,000-4,000 basic companies there, it makes a lot of sense for those to start joining together, and the Indians as well. I think making a bit of a competition for UPL would be quite useful, because a great deal of good quality Indian companies achieving $500, $600, $700 million, but they're just way beyond the UPL. So I think that would make sense as well.